Welcome to Ambition Today, a new podcast show discussing with other entrepreneurial and ambitious people what it means to achieve success, grow your startup, try to change the world, and go after your dreams today. On episode 3 of Ambition Today, we are joined by Clark Dever. Clark is the founder of Heads Up Display, a visual notification system for workers in hazardous environments. On today's episode, we discuss how to travel the United States for only $600, the future of esports, and how do you compete with Google Glass and Oculus Rift. Also, how do you grow a startup ecosystem out of an industrial renaissance? Buffalo, New York may have the answer. Elon Musk's Solar City, ecosystem driving programs like Z80 Labs and 43 North, and affordable cost of living are some of the things driving Buffalo forward as a startup city. Be sure to subscribe to Ambition Today in the iTunes Store and on Stitcher for Android. Today's episode of Ambition Today is brought to you by Audible.com. Visit audibletrial.com/ambition today to download any audiobook free and try Audible for 30 days. This is Ambition Today.
Looking to make your dreams come true? Needing that extra push to become more successful? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Ambition Today with your host, Kevin Siskar.
What's up, world? I am Kevin Siskar, and you are listening to Ambition Today. On today's program, we have Clark Dever, the founder of Heads Up Display, based out of Buffalo, New York. Heads Up Display is a visual notification system for workers in hazardous environments. Clark, welcome to Ambition Today.
Hey, Kevin, thanks. And I'm glad to be on Ambition Today, and hello to your audience.
How's it going? So I want to just start. So let's just get right into it. So how did you start as an entrepreneur?
You know, I started in the way that I think a lot of people do, just by accident, right? I'm always busy and interested in trying new things. Even in high school, I had a T-shirt company, and I was designing T-shirts and printing them. Failed at that miserably. Went on to the next thing. I think the iterative process of failure and learning is key to entrepreneurship.
Cool. So what was the first thing you dove in?
So, I think my first steps towards, learning how to build a business, after the failed T-shirt company, I started getting into software development. I kind of grew up in the mid to late 90s hacker scene, and so I got into programming, and then I found that those skill sets translated to being able to make money. This guy hired me as a designer to make buttons for his e-commerce website, and by probably 6 to 9 months later, I was in charge of their software development because I was the only guy that actually knew how to code. So, seeing software that I wrote in high school and like my first couple of years of college doing $4 million plus a year in transactions gave me, kind of the confidence to try the next thing.
Yeah, it kind of showed you at that early of an age, which very few people see, that there's potential here. That's great.
Totally.
I think that kind of parallels, like all most successful people usually had some sort of early hustle that showed them the potential's there. Like you just need to reach for it.
Yeah, if only I'd been smart enough to ask for equity.
Well, we'll get to that. Okay, and then anything else about your start, or?
I think that all like the great entrepreneurs that I've met are all very systematic. Like we're easily distracted by shiny new ideas, but when we dig down, I think that there's a lot of process engineering that goes on. And so I actually even look at my background. When I was in high school, I was into competitive gaming, like some of the first esports leagues, and and my experience running my paintball team just with my cousins. But those kind of ritualistic, like build a process, train to it, and then become the best.
Can you just give the audience a little bit of a background on what you mean by that? I know you said the word esports. Some people don't know what that is yet.
Yeah. So starting in the mid 2000s, you saw first person shooter games like Quake and Quake 3 and the different ID software games start to develop enough of a following that there was money to be made just in their in their playing, like just like the NFL or NHL. Right. People started to watch them. So we played in 2 of the initial leagues that developed, and we were playing against people all over the world. So I was playing 2 games a week to maintain our bracket position, and practicing probably 4 to 8 hours a night in between, just to stay sharp. So, esports now is huge. It's $1 billion industry. I mean, Twitch.tv, which is basically a the ESPN of esports got acquired by Amazon for over $1 billion.
So is esports more specifically, what's more core to the idea of esports? Is it the people playing the games professionally, or is it the massive amount of audience that's being generated from people just watching people play games?
I think that it's both, right? I mean, you couldn't have esports if people sucked at the games. So you need people who are willing to commit the time. And I think the organic evolution of it was that people loved the game so much that they started to achieve almost like superhuman feats at them just by playing all the time. And that drew the audience because other players, just like if you play high school football, you have more of an appreciation for, NFL players because you've seen how hard it is to even do trivial things. And then to watch people, who are just incredible athletes, it makes the game for you and you want to watch them because
there's parallels here to other major leagues, NBA, NHL. I know actually like a week or 2 weeks ago, this game League of Legends sold out Madison Square Garden. So there's this massive thing happening. I know most people aren't paying attention to it. Football's about to start. NHL is going to kick back up. But in the world of the internet, esports are blowing up.
Totally. And I think you're going to see, a lot more major sponsored hours coming in. Currently, it's still mostly game companies, but
I know like Coca-Cola sponsors.
Yeah.
It's happening, and it seems like whenever that does happen to an industry, the advertising money starts flowing in. It just gets this quick upshot of what's potential in that realm.
Totally. I think you're right on.
Okay, cool. So I also wanted to. I know you told me this story one time about how you traveled the world for the price of one plane ticket. I may not be saying that totally accurate, but what was that about?
Yeah, so along with process development, I think that there's two other things that really make a startup just crush it. And one of them is timing, right? You have to kind of time the market and make sure you're there in the right money. And then the other thing is just like complete dedication to your customers, right? And so basically what happened was I had been saving to start a photography business, and I was working an e-commerce job at the time, and I was kind of bored with it, and I wanted to do more stuff where I would interact with people. And here's where the timing thing comes in. JetBlue, for the first time ever, had a promotion where it was $5.99, all you could fly for a month, unlimited flights for a month.
That's awesome.
And so it opened one day, and it sold out pretty much the same day. So I saw the tweet about it, and then I messaged back and forth with one of my friends. I was like, we got to do this. And we bought tickets, and we had them, and then we had to figure out what we were going to do, right? And so we spun up a brand and a blog. We basically spent the evening like riffing on a whiteboard about concepts, and we came down to the concept of 12 hours in a city. And that was because we could get the domain name and we could say it in a soundbite, and people and explain the project, right? And so it made it easy to kind of spread it via word of mouth. And we started tweeting about it, and we threw up a blog, and the timing thing comes in because the news media had just figured out what Twitter was. So we had been, it's 2009. I had been on Twitter for probably 12 months or something like that. But the news was just starting to realize its potential. And so they were following it was called All You Can Jet was the name of the program. So that they were following the hashtag for All You Can Jet. And we were tweeting about our project and how we're going to fly around the country for a month and do all this crazy stuff for only $600. So a guy from Time called us, and we were the heel of the first story about how we were taking advantage of this, corporation. Okay. And offered all this free publicity. And then CNN picked us up off of Twitter as well. And they did the interview, but because of other news events that happened, it got delayed into till the start of the program. So on this day one of the program, we were the travel section lead on CNN.com. And from there, we basically...
So where'd you go?
We went to every major U.S. city once that JetBlue flew to, and then we went to Las Vegas twice because, Vegas.
So literally you could just print out tickets to anywhere you wanted in the U.S.?
Yeah, it was a little bit more complex than that because you could only, there had to be a seat available.
Right.
So we booked out our whole itinerary for the month in advance. I sat on the phone with a JetBlue booking agent for 3 hours because we flew with 4 people. There's basically 2 of us were the hosts, and then the other guys were kind of support. Okay. And so we had to, my first, it's 30 times at least 2 legs per flight, or two sections per leg. So, I mean, we were talking almost 250 flights that I had to book the first day.
Wow.
To make sure that our whole team could go through the whole trip together.
Wow.
So that's the process-oriented thing.
So how did you take the? So you saw the opportunity, you timed it right, you came up with an idea. So how did you turn this opportunity into a business, or what did you guys end up doing, you and your partner?
Well, so I mean, I acted as the producer, and we would. The whole shtick was that people would comp us stuff and show us a good time because they knew they were going to get either local or national press about it. So we had 2 competing factors. We had to have interesting things to show on our blog, but we had to have press to get the interesting things.
Right.
So we developed processes, and this is where the dedication to your fans comes in too, is we would have, for every flight inbound to a new city, I would send out press releases like a couple days before to all the media outlets, and basically to get them to meet us at the airport, because we didn't have time to like travel around to them, because we were only there maybe most times like 12 to 18 hours, and we had to get something in and shoot some video or whatever. So we would do the press as soon as we landed or as we were leaving, or we would work with the press to do a kind of like highlight reel of what's available in their city, and if there was like an editorial component to their press, like they would just take us around all the cool stuff.
Nice.
And then if we didn't have someone to basically be a fixer for us and come up with the cool things, we would reach out to our fans on Twitter and be like, hey, we're flying into LA. We don't know anyone. What should we do? And we would just get waves of people going like, oh, meet my cousin. He does this. He's the owner of this. And the reason we had that kind of dedication was because we were sharing in real time, the experience, which is like, now it sounds like duh, like that's what people do. But in 2009, we were kind of like on the cutting edge of that.
Yeah, blogs were still new. They're only a few years old at that point.
Yeah, and you look at like, online dating, right? Like how people like didn't trust meeting like random strangers off the internet. So when we were like, yeah, we're using the social media thing, and just like randos are putting us up in their houses and showing us, like my parents thought I was an idiot. They were just like waiting to get the death notification. So, but every day my goal was to have a new blog post online by 7 a.m. Eastern time, so my friend could edit it and get it live by 8 a.m., which sounds easy, but when you're on the West Coast and you're partying till 4 a.m., like that's 7 a.m. East Coast time.
Right.
So there was a lot of, just pure exhaustion, just typing and doing post-production and in horrible, places, sleeping on airplane or airport floors.
How, so you talk about you had to meet that deadline every day. How important is consistency with your business? Because this is something that I keep noticing. It seems you can put all this work in and you can produce this great thing, but just being consistent with your blog posts, with your products, like how important is that in your mind?
I think it depends on your business, right? I mean, we were in the zeitgeist, right? Like we were a moment in time. And so for us, it was more about just getting content out there. And Seth Godin, I think, used to say, like, if you don't say things that are a mistake on social media, like you're not talking enough, like that was kind of the rule of thumb.
Yeah, just ship whatever you can.
Right. But I think from the business standpoint, so from 12 Hours in the City, I basically had my bona fides, and people started to hire me to do social media. I toured nationally talking to artists on how to start a social media campaign. And for that, I think it's all about content schedule. It's all about pre-production, because that's where you add the most value.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, I want to talk more about how you made it from blogger to founder of Heads Up Display, and more on that in a minute.
This is Ambition Today with Kevin Sisker. We'll be right back.
Today's sponsor is Audible.com. Visit audibletrial.com/ambition today to get your free download of any audiobook. Try Audible free for 30 days. I have to say, this is a sponsor that I have been using for years. I'm currently in the middle of reading Elon Musk by Ashley Vance. I should say listening, I guess. And Audible.com makes it so easy to learn and soak in the knowledge, or just get away into a good book during a commute, which is when I listen to it. It's just a great service. The books are always high quality. The speakers are always on point. The book I'm currently reading, Elon Musk by Ashley Vance, actually plays an important role in this current episode of Ambition Today, because we are offsite in Buffalo, New York, where Elon Musk is currently bringing 3,000 jobs through the Solar City project. The man is incredibly interesting. He poured almost all of his fortune into SpaceX, Tesla, and SolarCity, and is working incredibly hard to try and change the world and improve human civilization. I can't thank Audible.com enough for, making it so easy to understand that story, his story, what he's working on through listening. Visit audibletrial.com/ambition today. And now back to the program.
You're listening to Ambition Today. Visit us now at syscar.co.
And we're back. Thank you to today's sponsor. So, Clark, I wanted to jump back into it. So, how did you go from a blogger to a founder of a scalable tech enterprise company?
So the 12 Hours in the City project kind of gave me my bona fides. I was now a social media guy in the age of social media guys, and I had been working on a tech project in New York. Long story short, I sat next to the CEO of a company called Vuzix on the way home on a flight back to Rochester to see my family, and I convinced him that they needed someone to help them with their marketing. Now, Vuzix made basically Google Glass before Google Glass existed. So they made augmented reality heads-up displays. And with them, because I was like their marketing savvy guy, they could put me in the room with people and not be afraid of me, engineering it to death. So I was their technical sales support guy. So I ended up doing support for guys like Navy SEALs and Rangers and things like that. We were selling them like really cool high-tech products. And when I was there, like that allowed me to see all the failure modes of video displays like Google Glass.
In the area of military, industrial.
Military and industrial space. So, there's issues with field of view or cognitive load. Like it takes too much of your attention to watch them when someone's shooting at you. Battery and weight. Like these guys are already carrying 50, 100 pounds of gear and they don't want to carry more batteries so that their video display lasts another hour. And then things like ruggedness, like, you take something like glass and throw it across the room and something's going to get misaligned and it's not going to work anymore.
Right.
And so while I was there, we joked, like, I don't want to pay $1,500 for 1080p. I want 4 pixels for $100. And so there was a startup weekend in Buffalo, and my mission became like, let's go build a 4 pixel heads up display for $100. And so we did with like an Arduino. And since then, we've just been kind of off to the races. We ended up at the Z80 incubator, Z80 Labs incubator in Buffalo, New York. So after we took third place at Startup Weekend, which I actually think is better than winning first, because if you win first, like you're not hungry enough. Like you win third, you feel like oh, it was a good idea.
There's still some work to do.
They just didn't understand, everyone thinks you should win first. So that took us to the next step where we went and pitched at Z80 and we ended up being incubated there.
Awesome. So a little bit. So what has Heads Up Display become, and what's the main mission behind it?
So Heads Up Display is a visual notification, that prompts workers in hazardous work environments.
So it's hardware or software?
So it's hardware, and it clips on to any pair of safety glasses. It just slides right on because we don't want to mess with people's supply chains or whatever.
Right.
And it's basically 4 full color RGB LEDs, right? So you can blink patterns at people. And that's it. It's super simple. Everyone's trying to like rebuild the Apollo program doing 1080p.
Right, with Google Glass.
Yeah, Google Glass. And we're like, no one's built the right flyer, So we just built like this most trivial heads-up display we could for industrial workers, for safety. These guys need to be focused on their jobs and they need to maintain their situational awareness so they don't get hit by a fork truck. Right. And so that's what we allow them to do.
So have you got, is it released? Are you testing it? Is there any results as to how it's, improves safety? Any sort of metrics, data on that? Or?
So we've done 50 plus customer interviews. We're launching our first beta sites in the next couple of weeks, some pretty major ones. And we've had, we've had inbound leads from like Fortune 500 companies that are interested in it. So, we're in like a really good spot. We're just right on the cusp. Hardware is really expensive, and so we've been bootstrapping pretty much this entire time.
Right.
Right now we're in the 43 North competition, so that could really accelerate us. We're semifinalists. We find out if we're finalists in the next couple of weeks, and that will determine if we win basically $250,000 to $1 million prize.
Okay.
Which is a good way to start.
I definitely want to talk more about 43 North, but real quick, if someone wants to learn more about Heads Up Display, where should they go?
Headsupsafe.com.
Okay. All right, cool. So you mentioned 43 North, and that's actually a pretty good segue to what I want to talk about next. So I'm from Buffalo. I currently live in New York City, teaching the Founder Institute and running it there, which is a Silicon Valley-based launch accelerator. So there's all sorts of mindsets and places and ecosystems happening. But I really think, even with all those perspectives, that there's something happening in Buffalo. And I know 43 North plays a role in that. So can you just give the audience a little bit of a background on what 43 North is as a competition and what it's doing for the region?
Yeah, so 43 North was in its second year now. It was the largest business plan or business idea competition ever. $5 million in prizes. They've had, over the last 2 years, they've had over, 3,000 or 5,000 entries from all over the world, like 100 countries, every state. And the idea is, if you win, you have to spend your first year as a company in Buffalo. And the idea is that you'll get integrated with the ecosystem, and then it's kind of hard to move. So it's an idea to bring like high growth startups to Buffalo.
Great. And I love what they're doing over there. I think it's working. They're in their second year now, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll be curious to see, 4 or 5 years out, what happens with last year's winner. And one of the other things that's happening in Buffalo is, and I personally love this, is that it's not just software apps for iPhone and Android. There's a ton of science, biomedical, and legit technology being made here. You can speak to that yourself. You're in a hardware startup. Is that an advantage for Buffalo in the long run? Is it a disadvantage?
Well, I think biotech is really hard because it takes 10 years to get through FDA approvals, right? So we have some very long run plays. I think we're gonna have our first unicorn in the next 6 months or so. There's a biotech company that's coming through. I think the magic about Buffalo though is, we've had a downturn since the 70s. So anyone who was left starting in 2005 or so was just the diehard believers. There was better opportunities everywhere, and everyone who wasn't completely committed left. And so all that was left from 2005 until now were just hardcore, Buffalo's the best, we're going to make it rock. Right. And that is what's changed the time. Government programs are nice, but the grassroots organizing and the culture of collaboration and sharing is really what is driving this entrepreneurial revolution in Buffalo.
Yeah, and I think if you mix that with the fact of the downturn during the 70s and the second half of the 20th century, space is really affordable. Mm-hmm. It's a really affordable place to bootstrap your company, start it, get it up. Do you have anything else to say about that as far as what the region itself lends to startups? Yeah,
I think it's good to just quote prices because your audience, right? So my cousin and I, when we were living together, co-founding Heads Up Display in an apartment, we had a 1,500 square foot apartment, 2 blocks off of one of the best areas in town, and we were paying $600 a month rent. Wow. Total. Not
that would
even
be so much more in Manhattan.
Right. Not even, individually. Imagine being, just in the best area you could, right off Central Park,
yeah.
And paying that little. So your runways are huge, and your ability to, in comparison,
right.
And your ability to bootstrap is awesome. And also, a lot of the talent coming up, really, really talented guys. We have 10 colleges and universities in Buffalo, so there's just such a deep talent pool, but they're used to making almost nothing. So we've been able to source talent really cheap.
Awesome. And so to transition from that to where I think the potential of Buffalo is going, Elon Musk, chairman of Solar City, I believe his cousin runs the company, is building the world's largest solar factory right in downtown Buffalo. It's going to be some 3,000 jobs. What are people in the region saying about that? Do people even realize the impact that's going to make long term?
I think they do. People are very excited. There's been a whole lot of development all along the waterfront, as we call it. So I think the Riverbend project is huge. 3,000 manufacturing jobs is nice, 3,000 jobs, but some of them are going to be in manufacturing.
Right.
Just kind of start to spread the wealth. That's one of the reasons we want the high growth startups here, is because I want 100 guys who had exits walking around, impacting everyone else,
right.
With their cash flow.
Right. Yeah, I am personally very excited to see what happens with Solar City. I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. I think what he's doing with SpaceX and Tesla is great, and I think Solar City is just a little bit behind that. There's been a little bit less money invested, but I think in the long term, it's going to be as big. It's going to change the world as much as SpaceX and Tesla are doing.
Yeah, I think potentially more, right? I mean, cheap renewable energy is the world needs that to be safe. Like SpaceX is like get off the planet because we need to survive as a species. Solar City is the immediate fix, like stop emitting carbon so we don't ice age ourselves.
Right. And that's what I kind of love about Elon Musk is all of his ventures are pointed towards advancing humanity and civilization through the companies he's working on, as opposed to just some cool thing that makes him a lot of money. So I think that's great.
Agreed. And if you read his story, I mean, he's backed every one of his startups to the bone. Every dollar he's spent, he's earned, he's reinvested in his startups.
Yeah, and that's the big titans back in the day used to do that. So yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to close it out here. So, what's one last piece of advice you would give to aspiring entrepreneurs?
Just like never give up. Persistence is a huge value. I think some of the traction Heads Up has at this point is just because we've bootstrapped for 2.5 years. 6 months in, people can ignore you. 2.5 years later, you're still coming back and you're showing demonstrable progress with no help. They eventually are going to turn and help you because they see that you're going to run this project the way it needs to be run. Right.
Okay, great. So I just want to thank you for coming on Ambition today. Where can people find out more about you and what you're working on?
Basically Twitter or Facebook. Clark Dever, my name is what I register everywhere. That's ClarkDever.
Okay.
Thank you for having me on Ambition today, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, and I will talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Ambition Today with your host, Kevin Siskar. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit www.siskar.co. We'll catch you next time.